What would you do if you discovered that a sanction was decided before the incident occurred? Frédéric Vasseur did not hesitate for a second and accused the FIA of lack of transparency after the leak of the controversial Hamilton penalty report in Mexico. But what is behind all this? Was it a political sanction? And what consequences could it have for Ferrari and for the future of F1? The tension in the paddock of the Mexican Grand Prix was already felt even before the traffic lights went out. Ferrari was under pressure, not only because of a challenging start to season, but also because of the urgent need to demonstrate that its star signing, Lewis Hamilton, could make a difference with the SF25. In that context, every maneuver counted, every curve was an opportunity or a risk. And just in that climate, the incident occurred that would unleash an institutional storm. In short, it was a pre-cooked resolution, not a decision informed by detailed analysis. This revelation not only questioned the validity of the sanction, but also fundamentally undermined the credibility of the entire Formula One disciplinary system. Because if it is sanctioned before reviewing the evidence, if decisions are made by reflex or political expediency, then the sport loses its competitive essence. And most alarming, this is not an isolated case, but one that could indicate a worrying pattern of favoritism or prejudice within the commissioner's core. The F1 community was divided. Some journalists attempted to downplay it, suggesting it was simply an operational efficiency to have the report ready if required. But from Ferrari, they didn't see it that way. For them, what happened in Mexico was not a formal error, but a direct violation of the principles of impartiality. And for the first time since taking over as team manager, Frédéric Vasseur exploded publicly. His statement left no room for interpretation. If the decision was already written before analyzing the data, then we are not competing on equal terms. This is not Formula One. It is something else. That moment marked a turning point. It was no longer about defending a driver or a position on the table. It was about defending the very legitimacy of the championship. And that, for an institution like Ferrari with its historical and political weight, is not something that is said lightly. Frédéric Vasseur did not take long to turn from anger to action. Following the race in Mexico and the explosive leak of the sanctioning report, the Ferrari team began a structured offensive that marked the beginning of what many describe as the largest political confrontation between a team and the FIA since the post-Schumacher era. Vasseur, an engineer by training and a strategist by nature, knew that so that his claim was not diluted as a tantrum of sporting frustration, he had to raise it as a question of sports governance. Therefore, far from limiting itself to inflammatory statements, Ferrari activated a formal procedure that has rarely been used in modern Formula One, a direct request to the World Motorsport Council to audit the sanctions protocol and guarantee complete traceability of the decisions made by the stewards. In the letter sent to the FIA, as revealed by the media Auto Hebdo, Ferrari demanded that all internal documents related to Hamilton's case be published, including logs of communications between the stewards and race control, access to unedited versions of the telemetry, and details about who approved each line of the sanctioning report. A demand that was perceived internally in the FIA as an unacceptable interference, but that in reality struck a very sensitive chord, the real independence of the commissioner's body and its possible alignment with non-sporting interests. The most serious thing was not only the claim, but the context in which it occurred. Because Ferrari is not complaining as an isolated team. He is doing so at a time when the credibility of the FIA has already been hit by other fronts: the controversial management of DRS zones in China, the controversial decisions on track limits in Australia, and a general feeling of lack of coordination among race directors. Ferrari chose to attack when the castle was already showing cracks. Vasseur, leading the offensive, is not alone. Their movement has begun to gain silent allies. Mercedes, although publicly remaining neutral, has sent internal signals of support for the initiative. Toto Wolff, privately, has described the FIA's actions as regressive and dangerous for the future of the sport. McLaren, for its part, maintains institutional silence, but Andrea Stella has acknowledged in off-the-record statements that consistency in decisions is a historical debt that the FIA owes to the teams. Even smaller teams, such as Williams and Aston Martin, see this rebellion as an opportunity to demand greater fairness. Because if Ferrari can force a profound review, the domino effect would also benefit structures that have historically had less power of influence in the Paris offices. But Vasseur went further. During a press conference in Maranello, he left a sentence that sums up the turning point we have reached. We are not asking for favors. We are asking for clear rules, verifiable processes, and sporting justice. If that is too much for the FIA, then we have a more serious problem than we thought. At that moment, he dropped another piece of information that changed the narrative. According to Ferrari, this is not the first time they have detected irregularities in the advanced drafting of sanctioning reports. Vasseur revealed that they had already archived evidence from at least 3 occasions in 2024 where similar conduct was suspected, but that until now they had decided not to make it public to avoid an open institutional conflict. Mexico was the last straw. Internally, the FIA is divided. Some officials consider that Ferrari is exaggerating due to an adverse sporting result, while others, especially within the legal team, recognize that a Pandora's box has been opened that could have profound consequences. If it is found that there are undocumented procedures, implicit favoritism, or decisions written with political bias, the credibility of the entire system will be in crisis. And meanwhile, the paddock becomes a minefield. Every action, every decision, every future sanction will be scrutinized with a magnifying glass. And Ferrari, for the first time in a long time, is acting not just as a team that wants to win races, but as a political actor seeking to shape the rules of the game. The question that floats in the air is inevitable. How far is Vasseur willing to go? And what will happen if the FIA does not give in? Ferrari's recent history in Formula One has been marked by ups and downs, but nothing compares to the moment of institutional rupture that caused Lewis Hamilton's sanction in Mexico. And it was not only the punishment that aroused Maranello's fury, but the nature with which it was discovered, a resolution prepared in advance, without conclusive technical evaluation. For Ferrari, that was not a procedural error. It was a covert declaration of intent. Frédéric Vasseur did not react with improvised statements. His training as an engineer and his career in sports management have taught him that political wars are not won on the microphone. They are earned in the documents, in the meetings, in the boards of directors, and above all, in the intelligent use of the media. From that same weekend in Mexico City, Vasseur activated what they called a structural crisis protocol within Ferrari, a mechanism that had not been activated since the technical scandals of 2019. And it was not an isolated movement. Ferrari, in a masterstroke of institutional pressure, activated its historical allies within the FIA World Motorsport Council. Among them, figures such as Marco Piccinini, former director of Ferrari and former vice president of the FIA, still influential in the internal decision-making circles. The objective: force an extraordinary session of the council to rethink the commissioner selection process and establish mandatory transparency measures. Among the proposals, recording and publishing stewards' deliberations, real-time publishing of revised telemetry, and creating a rotating panel of permanent judges with no ties to teams. The reaction in the FIA was as rapid as it was uncomfortable. While publicly they limited themselves to a brief statement promising to internally review the procedure used in Mexico, privately a storm broke out. Because what Vasseur has done in effect is challenge the backbone of F1's regulatory system. And it has done so from a structure with the most symbolic and historical weight of the championship. But the implications don't stop there. Internally, the FIA has begun to review its incident assessment protocols and has considered the possibility of introducing real-time assisted AI for maneuver review, a technology that would reduce human margin in controversial decisions. However, these types of changes require time, consensus, and legal validation. Meanwhile, the pressure does not let up. In sports, the big concern is how this will affect the morale and focus of the teams. If drivers begin to feel that the rules are not applied consistently, their aggressiveness on the track will be conditioned. We will see more conservative maneuvers, constant protests on the radio, and even direct challenges to race control decisions during races. This atmosphere of uncertainty can transform the season into a psychological as well as a technical war. Do you think Frédéric Vasseur has done the right thing by publicly exposing the flaws of the system? Should the FIA open its processes, record the deliberations, and be truly transparent with each sanction? Leave me your opinion in the comments what you think about all this.